Hello and welcome to the 125th episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And for this one, I'm actually really excited because I'll be talking about one of my favorite films. And without further ado, let's go into Spine 490, Wings of Desire, directed by Wim Wenders, 1987. I remember exactly how I first got into this film. I actually saw this through a seminar class I took while I was at William & Mary, and it was on music and film. And so it was exactly as it sounds. We talk about the relationship between music and film and the history of film music and music's use in cinema and so on. And as this was a seminar class, we had certain films that we watched over the course of the seminar. This included The Jazz Singer and Casablanca, and we had a choice of Hitchcock films that we could see on our own, and the film that I saw on my own was Psycho. We also saw The Magnificent Seven and Metropolis as well. But this film was more towards the end. And I have to be completely honest, I was not looking forward to it, and it was only because of the title. The title seems to me, it sounded like a romance novel, and or like a dime store romance novel. It's like, I have this really, really bad feeling, and I'm glad I was proven wrong. Now first, okay, let's talk a little bit about the title. Now, if you get into this film, you find that the original title is actually German, and it's Der Himmel über Berlin, or The Sky over Berlin, or Heaven over Berlin. And so how do you get from that to Wings of Desire? Well, actually, it's because of Wings of Desire is actually the translation of the French title that was given, Les Célestes du Désir. And this is actually the title that Wim Wenders prefers more. I don't know if this carries over into German at all, but so there you go. That's how you get from Der Himmel über Berlin all the way to Wings of Desire. So, yes, Lindsay, your German is still flawless. Anyways, but thankfully, seeing that I was proven wrong with that, and so once again proving that you can't really judge a book by its cover. Now, what makes this film so great? The film is, the story of it is this seems to be a reoccurring theme now. I say it's really simple, but there's a lot more to it. It's really about these two angels that are there to, and of course they're there amongst others, but it's focused on these particular angels. They're there to observe and to watch the citizens of Berlin, and they are there to listen, to observe, to record, and not really to intervene in the lives of everyone that's there. And you get to a point where one of them decides that he wants, in this case it's Damio, played by Bruno Ganz. He wants to become human. That's his desire, that's his aim. He wants to actually experience sensations. He wants to live in the moment rather than experiencing things in the spiritual realm and experiencing eternity. And this desire gets further fueled when he comes across a circus that's held, and he falls in love with a trapeze artist, played by Solveig Martin, who was actually Wim Wenders' girlfriend at the time. And the interesting thing with her is that she actually learned how to do trapeze artistry. So all the trapeze scenes that you see of her, it was all done by her. And she also was able to do it without the safety of a net, too. So that's really quite remarkable. Dedication. I like that. So, all these things start, and then eventually he does cross over into the human realm, and he is able to eventually to realize this relationship, and it leads into, I think, one of the best love scenes. Usually when you say love scenes, it usually means it's the physical act, but this is a love as in the idea or the notion or the nature of love scenes. I think this is one of the best love scenes that you find in all of cinema. Obviously, there's a pantheon of them, but this is certainly one of them. Now, I've mentioned a lot about Demille. There's other characters here. He has a friend named Marion. Cassio, played by Otto Sander, and in fact, both Bruno Ganz and Otto Sander were very good friends. And this was something that Wim Wenders wanted, because he wanted to show these two angels that have been around for a long time, and they feel very, very comfortable with each other. And by the way, the girl Demille is interested in, the character's name is Marion. Another character in this, there's two more major characters in this. Another is the character's name is Homer, and he's viewed as the poet of ages, and he's played by Kurt Bois, who was a well-known actor in the Weimar Republic in the 20s and into a little bit of the 30s, and I believe he had to flee when the Nazis came to power. I know that he was scolded in the Nazi anti-Semitic documentary, The Eternal Jew. But at any rate, and in fact, actually, how he came involved was Ganz and Sander did a film project where they looked at two German actors, and one of them happened to be Kurt Bois, and so that's how he kind of got involved in it. And anyways, so that's his character. I'll get into a little bit about the nature of the film and the way it all plays out. And finally, the other character is another angel or former angel that had already crossed over into the other side, and in a certain sense helps Demille a bit in the transition, and this is Peter Falk. So yes, so you have Grandpa reading the story, and he's also an angel. So insert your favorite Princess Bride line here, or Columbo line. There's a lot of references to Columbo, because it's pointed out that he was in Columbo. But he's supposedly playing himself, but he's also supposed to be a former angel. Now, that's basically the story. Now, what makes this interesting is the way that it plays out. It doesn't play out as a straightforward narrative where the dialogue is there to drive forward the story. It's more to elicit a mood, and in that sense, it's an example of poetic cinema, like you find in The Spirit of the Beehive, and where it's characters that are both being true to themselves, but they're also pondering other things. And a large part of it has to do with the initial inspiration for the film, and that was Wim Wenders getting reacquainted with the poetry of Rainier Maria Rilke. And if you've ever read any of his poems, he is very much about the experience, and as well as the deeper meaning of it. And this is the best way to explain both what makes the film very compelling, and also if you see this and you end up not liking the film. So you can thank or blame Rilke for the way that Wings of Desire plays out. And because of this, the emphasis is much more on theme and ideas and ponderings rather than on narrative, which can make some of the dialogue feel like it's just wandering philosophical musings, which you either like or you don't. And I know for myself, I really liked that. I mean, I wasn't prepared for it. In fact, I was prepared to not like the film at all. But I ended up really, really liking it, and it became a favorite film. I got it immediately on DVD, and I was kind of hoping that Criterion would put this out, because the initial, it was 2003, I think, when the DVD came out. It came out through MGM. The transfer was okay, but I felt like, I felt like there could be something more to this. Like, it could look better. And sure enough, it did come out on DVD, and I immediately got it, and I was very, very happy with it. In fact, I think that was my 101st Criterion purchase. Yes, I do keep those little markers in mind, but I can't tell you exactly what order I got Criterion titles. But I did know that I do happen to know that particular one, because I really, really like the film, and so I was really, really happy when that came out through Criterion. So yeah, I ended up liking it. One scene that I really liked is again, these angels are observing people in Berlin, and that's the other interesting part of it, and this is what makes it really, really compelling, is that it wasn't entirely intentional, but it did serve as a time capsule, not just Berlin 1987, but most especially East and West Berlin in 1987. Unbeknownst to all involved in the production, the wall would come down in about 2 years. And so in that respect, it's really, really interesting to see Berlin at that time. It was pretty much the I don't want to call it the peak, but it's definitely near that pivotal moment that changed Berlin from one thing to the next. Berlin 1987, and pretty much actually Berlin from 1949 up to 1989, for the past 40 years of its existence, Berlin was really an island in of itself, especially West Berlin, in a sea of East Germany. And so it was something that, on the one hand, it was connected. It was still connected to the West, but at the same time, it could also exist in its own world. This is why Berlin was an inspiring place for artists, most notably David Bowie. So it's a neat little kaleidoscope of what you could find in Berlin, and the kinds of, and you get these little impressions, and that's pretty much there's a considerable bulk of the film where again, these angels are hearing the thoughts of everybody, and so you hear these little snippets of thoughts about when is my kid going to give up his music obsessions? What am I going to do with this? How am I going to deal with this health problem? How am I going to deal with this financial thing? Just all these various things that kind of wander through people's minds, and it's just allowed to play out. There's no real narrative pressure. It's not to say that there isn't a narrative. It's just not as you don't feel so much the thrust of it. I mean, you just feel like it just kind of flows and ebbs like a river. But you do feel like, but at the same time, it doesn't feel completely directionless. It's not aimless, but it's allowed to play out. And I think because of that, it's sort of, for lack of a better way of describing it, it kind of seduces you into it. It's so in that sense, it's also kind of, you can also be thought of as kind of a mood piece. that just sort of draws you into that world and that premise of just of being in the world of angels and seeing it from their eyes. And the other mark of this film is that it alternates between black and white and color. And the black and white is supposed to be from the angel's point of view, where the way that they see things, they see the essence of an object. They see its internal character, and it's devoid of instant sensational experience or sensory experience, like color. Whereas color is a very immediate sensory experience, and it's very much rooted in the present and the now. And so, and that is I think in large part of why you're able to get away with something like this is because it's because of that transition and making that obvious, the contrasts. And that's what I think was what makes it work. But anyways, I was going to get into one of the scenes that I like is that, so these angels are observing people's thoughts, and then the central place where a lot of these angels, it's kind of their central meeting place, because you see other angels observing and such, and you kind of learn quickly who's an angel. I mean, apart from well, actually, it's all in black and white, but you can tell who's an angel in the black and white. Angels can see themselves, and also children are able to see angels, part of the innocence of child. But angels are deliberately conscious of each other's presence. But anyways, the place that they like to meet is a library, and this is I really like this scene for its cinematography and also its music. The library is the music consists of it's exclusively of voices, and it's voices that are, and I found this out later, the voices are assigned to sing different texts, and it was all at random. You hear some newspaper articles, you hear some excerpts of a fiction book and a non-fiction book and poetry, and just kind of this amalgamation of texts, which again is evocative of what you find in a library. A library is a collection of books and different texts and such, and so you're hearing the voices, and it's forming this kind of sort of weird choral sound that is kind of is both modern and not modern. It has the evocation of something medieval, especially in terms of the sounds, but the construction and even the result sounds very, very modern. And in a way, it makes sense for the angels to frequent libraries, because this is the closest, at least in the modern world, that you get to something like a church, where it is a place where people can go and be with their thoughts. They can concentrate on it's a place of mental concentration. It's a place of introspection and reflection, much in the same way that a cathedral once was. But this is the modern equivalent of going to church. So, which as a bibliophile and as someone who is indebted to the library as far as my intellectual development and in other respects, that makes me very happy. So you can tell why this film is there's a lot of points for it, at least certainly for me. And then another couple scenes is there's some bands that Wim Wenders liked and happened to be playing in Berlin, and this is these are all related to I think they started out in Australia, but this is the birthday party. But there were two groups that kind of were formed from the breakup of Birthday Party. One was Crime in the City Solution, and and the song that they play, Six Bells Chime, is become one of my favorite songs And then on the other hand, you have Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And they feature in other ways in the film, but they play two songs there. The Carney, which is a song that Marion plays in her trailer when she's not rehearsing her trapeze act, when she's sitting alone with her thoughts. She plays this record as she's thinking out loud to herself, that is heard by Damil. So she plays that song, and she also hears this in the concert, or it's heard in a concert. And then the next song that's played by Nick Cave in the Backseats is From Her to Eternity. And so I forget where this essay comes from, but somebody pointed out that having that song in there, it makes you want to reverse the title to fit with the film. And so for Damil, he goes from eternity to her. So anyway, so the point is that there's lots of little details that makes this really compelling, and then but it's the summation of the details. It's particularly with the character of Homer. There's this sense of, there's this lament of, I don't know, yeah, again, like I said earlier, these are all philosophical musings, so it's kind of hard to kind of compose thoughts a little bit. But since he's approaching it as a poet and a storyteller, he's thinking about the role that stories play, and there's a kind of lament that he has that stories haven't done enough to make people better where they are, to improve their lives and the world around them, that we so easily let ourselves be led astray and to go down dark paths. Again, there's also the sense of the, not just the present of Berlin, but there's also these little evocations of Berlin's own history. There's a few moments where there's cutaways to Berlin after World War II, when it was all shelled to hell by the Russians, and everyone recovering from that. So there's a sense of there's the past and the present and the future. Again, the nature of time. Again, all philosophical musings, and that's what makes this certainly a very enjoyable film for me, at least. Which then leads into another aspect of the film, which definitely gets me into a bit of a rant mode, is that this film, well, when the film came out, it was a surprising success. It was one of those films you kind of look at in the construction of it. You think that there are some elements that could make it work, but then there's also some things that could make it really obtuse. But it turned out to play very, very well. Wim Wenders got Best Director when it played at the Cannes Film Festival in 1987. It was critically acclaimed, and it was even commercially acclaimed, certainly in Europe. I think it did fairly well in the United States, there was a sequel to this film that was intentionally constructed by Wim Wenders. It wasn't one of those capitalizing on the success of Wings of Desire, and that was Far Away So Close, is what it's called, and hopefully that will come out on I've yet to see that film, but hopefully that will come out. I think it may still be available, but if it's not available in some form, hopefully it'll come out, hopefully through Criterion. And then finally, now we get into sort of rant mode. This would be remade into City of Angels, and I really do not like the film. Now, to be honest, there's only one scene of the film that I remember seeing. It was when my mother watched it, and they're at the library, and the angel, played by Nicolas Cage, is talking with the love interest, played by Meg Ryan. And so I didn't know this at the time. So this was before I saw Wing of Desire. But what I remember seeing, I remember not liking. They were talking, and I think he was trying to describe what heaven is like, and then he mentioned Hemingway, that it's supposedly like Hemingway. And then Mom looked at me and goes, well, actually Hemingway reminds me of the other place. It does not remind me of heaven at all. She does not like Hemingway at all. So the thought of evoking Hemingway like heaven was kind of sort of blasphemy to her. So I remember. So after that, I remember thinking, like, I'm not really interested. And yeah, there's the Goo Goo Dolls song Iris that was tied in with the film, and it got kind of annoying hearing it over and over again. So already there was some, just like that Wings of Desire had some good points with me. Already City of Angels was racking up some bad points. And then it really started to get offensive after I saw Wings of Desire. And then when I saw that City of Angels was indeed a remake of the film, and I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding me. Really? And as I've heard more about it, it is a very, very pale shadow of that film. It's everything that is not in Wings of Desire is pretty much in there with City of Angels. The narratives are, there is more of a straightforward narrative, and thus, and ultimately, what suffers are any of the characterization and the nuances and the complexities that made Wings of Desire so compelling. It just sort of flattens it all, and it follows more or less a fairly conventional story. But I think the thing that really makes it irritating is that there's still this need to tie it back to Wings of Desire, and that's why I feel that in the end it's a very, very pale shadow to it. It thinks it has this profundity, but it really doesn't. Whereas Wings of Desire is genuinely profound. It's profundity that's earned, and therefore I don't think of this as pretentious. It was made by a director that had that could straddle both worlds of European art cinema and in some sense some American sensibility, and in terms of being kind of in the here and now and taking advantage of what was popular. But it makes it sound like he was an opportunist, but he wasn't. But there's something really, really, I feel that there's something very genuine and very moving, and I tend to respond to films like that, where you feel like there's a sincerity behind the art, and it makes it really, really compelling. And I think this will be my last little factoid. I mentioned there's a sense of the past, and what really makes this, I've mentioned a lot about the cinematography, and the cinematographer for this film was Henry Alakane, who worked with Cocteau for Beauty and the Beast, and in fact he was called out of retirement by Wim Wenders to shoot the film, and so he was able to employ his cinematographic talents into the film, and I think the film greatly benefits from it. Certainly it looks great in black and white, but it even looks great in color. And I don't think that Alakane actually worked with color prior to Wings of Desire. I may be wrong on that, but if it was the first time, he was able to pull it off really, really well. And it really does give the sense of, again, what having that sense of color does, because again, this is something that the angels lack in their spiritual state. That for them it's about the eternal essence of the object, whereas and particularly what Damil was interested in was to experience the here and now, the moment, which is also something that fascinated Rilke in his poetry, where it was actually for him it was kind of a reverse, because I think he started out with fixating on the moment, but then he started to be a little bit more well, objective in his contemplations, I think is probably the best way to say it, where it's describing a sensation as if it had happened and if it was genuine, but it can also lead to some other thoughts down the line. So it's very clear I'm going to recommend this because I genuinely like it. I understand if there are some aspects about it, either based on what I've said or if you've done your own reading or your own research into the film, there may be some stuff that you may not like. But in the end, I like what I like, and I don't apologize for it, and I certainly don't apologize for liking this. And I'm glad that I do like it, and I feel that it's one of the films that, if anything else, I feel like this is one of the films that can help. I think best describes me in the way that I think about things and the way that I approach things. It's sort of like a go-to film to say, if you watch this, you kind of get some idea of who I am. There's some other films that do this as well, but this is certainly one of them. So, so with that was Wings of Desire, and we are almost done. But until next time, take care.